Salufalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up,
people are trying to get back on their feet and also get things back to normal.
Rescue teams working around the clock in Vanuatu. Also, what does 2025 hold for Papua New Guinea? And
we didn't do so great in the first 2 years, but I think we're heading in the right direction with the new coaching staff in now and a few exceptional players, so looking forward to it.
Moana Pasifika looks to impress in the new year. Power, electricity and mobile networks are slowly being restored in Vanuatu's capital 2 days after the 7.3 magnitude earthquake struck. Bodies are still being pulled from the rubble and the death toll is unclear. Caleb Fotheringham has more.
A local journalist in Port Vila, Charles Sambay, says conflicting reports of the official death toll are starting to emerge.
From observations and the team that are heading in and out to the emergency and stuff, we can say there's unconfirmed deaths now should be around 20 or 30.
He says people just want to feel some sense of normality.
You can tell people are trying to get back on their feet and also get things back to normal, trying very best to get things back to normal. We've had the day yesterday. Most employees don't attend to work because they had to make sure they restore back their homes and make sure all the broken things that is at home to be sorted.
All the while, survivors are still being pulled from the rubble.
We've received reports that as of today, there's at least 3 to 5 that are still missing.
World Vision spokesperson Palin Phillips says rescue teams are busy and hospital staff are working around the clock.
Search and rescues are going okay. However, there is still few works that are still happening. The team has managed to at least retrieving few of the casualties.
Vanuatu National Disaster Management Office reports more than 200 people were injured. The country's international airport has been closed to commercial flights while international aid arrives. Vanuatu Airport's chief executive, Jason Rako, says authorities are doing everything they can to see the return of commercial flights as soon as possible.
So we are working with what we have, but slowly all services, all connections are re-established. Internet connectivity, we will re-establish yung lo tawa, installation lo Starlink, we will install them too, lo ground handling section, mo cargo, lo at least facilitate them all humanitarian aid which are coming.
Leaving a group of 80 Vanuatu seasonal workers who are on their way home from New Zealand stranded in Fiji. One of the group's team leaders, Francis Keelip, says they are holding out hope that their families are safe.
When we hear about earthquake, and then I just think about because close to go back home, but I don't know because earthquake is block us to stay here maybe 2 or 3 nights, I don't know. But we just think about all family, but we want to go to check all the family is all right or no. We pray it's only the court will save us to travel here to back to Vanuatu.
Another team leader, Danson Kirk, says he and his colleagues just want to get home so they can get stuck in and help.
But at the moment, our flight is cancelled, so we can stay there until Saturday. The flight is somewhere around 2 o'clock, so that we can go back and but our families and what we came from working, so we can go and help.
Vodafone Vanuatu says instant messaging has been restored, but the network does not support calling. RNZ Pacific has been unable to get hold of Vanuatu's National Disaster Management Office for comment.
A former Prime Minister of Vanuatu says Tuesday's destructive 7.3 magnitude earthquake has been traumatic and much more worse than previous disasters. Ismail Kausakau was the country's Prime Minister when the island nation was hit by 3 devastating tropical cyclones last year. Mr. Kausakau told Lydia Lewis Vanuatu will need significant assistance for recovery.
I was picking up my grandson and the place just shook violently. It's the worst that I've ever experienced an earthquake in my life, and everyone's just frightened and traumatized about the whole experience. It's pretty difficult at the moment because all communications are down. They're just slowly coming back. Water's just come back, electricity's just come back. But for a while there, it was extremely difficult to contact anybody to make sure that everyone is okay.
How extensive is the damage? I hear that it's quite localised to Port Vila.
It is localised to Port Vila. and the damage is substantial. It's very extensive, and as we speak, people are still being rescued out of buildings. We're not sure what's going to happen to those who are still buried under landslides, but we see a lot of personnel coming in from Australia and no doubt New Zealand in the next few days. We're just grateful that they can be here and be of invaluable assistance to us during this time.
Up until recently, there were still children learning in tents from cyclone disasters. How devastating is this on top of the disasters that obviously your government had to respond to?
Yes, well, I mean, it was a very scary experience for everyone, including myself, because I think most of us were physically thrown from where we were standing. We're thanking God that the earthquake didn't go for more than a minute, because I think if it did, because like almost every house on Efate and Port Vila have been damaged in some way. It's been a very dangerous experience. We're just so glad that it's over, and as long as lives are not lost, we can leave matters like properties to insurance and to deal with all of that, but as long as we're all safe.
What was the total cost of the dual cyclone disaster, if you can cast your mind back, and what does a disaster like this do financially to Vanuatu on top of that cost?
Oh, it's disastrous, because when I was Prime Minister, I understood the cost of the dual cyclones to be in the environs of 91 billion vatu. This is a devastation that transcends the devastation suffered by our tropical cyclones, and it's going to be a bit of an effort trying to evaluate and make sure that we account for all the devastation, but it's something we've never experienced before.
How are the women who rely on, making an income in the city?
Yeah, well, at the moment there are roadblocks because of some of the buildings in town that have collapsed, and it's pretty difficult at the moment to get to those mamas markets, and in some of those places where the mamas are selling island produce, they've just left their produce there, and you can visualize people lifting up the tarpaulins to check the food is there or not.
2025 is set to be a big year for Papua New Guinea. The country is marking 50 years of independence, while serious issues of violence continue to affect it. Don Wiseman and our PNG correspondent Scott Whitey took a look at what's ahead for PNG.
2025, just 2 years away from the next scheduled election, but there were huge problems with the Electoral Commission and the whole process around the election last time back in 2022, and big promises made to get that corrected. What progress has been made?
The government is trying to look at it very positively. It has begun work on electoral reforms, as it calls it. And there was a meeting 2 months ago in Port Moresby where they brought in all the heads of the electoral commission into Port Moresby, plus other stakeholders. One of the key figures there was the deputy chairman of the parliamentary committee that investigated the 2022 elections, Dr. Pukatemu. Now, he wasn't too happy with the progress so far. He basically said that, we're running out of time and there needs to be a lot more demonstration of political will to get this process through before the 2027 election. So he wasn't really confident of it. He wasn't really happy. But the process has begun. Now, whether that process will be completed before the elections is something else. It's like a dark cloud hanging over the Electoral Commission, just going towards 2027. With the independence celebrations coming up, a lot of people, they're not too hopeful about it. the question has been on the minds of many Papua New Guineans, what are we going to celebrate in 2025?
Yes. The critical thing, of course, was the law and order around that 2022 election. But when you look at 2024, it maybe was just as violent. There have been some horrific things that have happened over the past 12 months. There's been a lot of talk about beefing up the police force, but this is also talk that goes back a long way and keeps getting repeated, but we don't seem to see that much change, do we?
Yeah, the term that many politicians like to use is legacy issues. And, those legacy issues have been lingering for a very, very long time. I mean, we've got legacy issues in the state-owned enterprises that are not getting any better. And especially, as you said, with law and order, with this last parliament session, the parliament passed the domestic terrorism bill, made it into law, increased the police budget in the 2024-2025 budget in the November sitting. Now, on paper, it looks very good that a lot of funding is going to the PNG Defence Force, a lot of funding is going to the police and all that. But from experience in the last 10 years, we make budgets, but the money just isn't there when people need it. So it's going to be another challenge in 2025, whether the police are actually going to get that money to actually enforce the laws that the politicians have passed in Parliament. So a whole range of issues that need to be addressed and are being addressed very, very slowly.
Bougainville had wanted to be independent by next year or by 2027 at the latest, but they haven't made any progress, or there hasn't been any progress made on this issue of tabling the referendum in Parliament, the referendum on independence. And last week we had the Prime Minister saying, well, Bougainville's nowhere near being able to economically support itself. So what's going to happen with this Bougainville story in the near future, do you think?
Yeah, it's a point of contention and a point of frustration for Bougainvilleans, especially the president and his government. Outside of Parliament, there has been some progress made with bringing an external partner into this discussion to iron out how to get the referendum results to Parliament. That is a discussion that's ongoing, that's work that's ongoing. But whether we will get that into Parliament for Parliament to say yes to Bougainville's independence is something else. A lot of Bougainvillean MPs in the PNG Parliament are frustrated, and I think one of the most vocal this year has been Francisca Semoso, who was very angry, expressed that anger in Parliament. And I've spoken to her separately. She has expressed that Bougainville should be allowed to move forward with independence, and no country that has attained independence has ever been really ready in the Pacific. So she says that process should go ahead and Bougainville should be allowed to find its own way instead of people dictating how Bougainville should progress with this independence aspiration.
Now, next year, 2025, the 50th anniversary of independence for PNG, and there's already a lot of emphasis on this. It's going to be a big year for the country.
Yes, it's going to be a big year, and a lot of people are preparing for it. But, the ordinary person on the ground is feeling the pinch of, rising food costs, expensive education, expensive healthcare, and the difficulty of basically getting by every day. That's what they're facing going into 2025. So a lot of people are saying, yeah, we're going to celebrate independence, political independence. But what does it mean for the ordinary person? What does it mean for me? How is it going to change my life? So that's the discussion that's happening outside of political circles, outside of the celebratory mood that many people want to project going forward. And, we have elections in 2 years after 2025. So people are looking towards the future with a lot of uncertainty.
Pre-season training, especially over the Christmas holidays, are always tough for any sports team. It's no different for Moana Pasifika, who have been doing the hard mahi over the last 4 weeks at least, as they prepare for the new 2025 Super Rugby Pacific season. But head coach Whaalongo Tana Umanga believes the side will be in good standing with all that's being done. Eliesa Tora was at the North Harbour Stadium in Albany on Thursday as the side went through their paces on yet another hot day.
Umanga says things look promising for them with the new home base and the most talked about signing of All Black Adi Savea, who he believes will have a lot of influence on the team. Savea, currently on All Blacks leave, spent a day with the side this week, and Umanga says the experience was awesome for the team.
That's what we knew we'd get by having Artie come on board with us, and I think it's really lifted our players. When they saw him again, it gave us another lift. Coming to the end of our last week of pre-season, a bit more energy. Obviously, they've been working hard for the last 3 weeks, and then he's really given them a bit of motivation to see this week out well and finish well.
Umanga believes he has got the right mix of players to push Moana Pasifika's campaign forward following a groundbreaking season in 2024, winning 4 games for the first time.
Very important. Again, you've got to have people that have understood the struggle from where it started. They've had to work hard. They've had to work hard to retain that place. The ones that have been here since the start, the ones that we've brought on, we've tried to build on what's been started and obviously hopefully enhance the group. And then some of the players we've got have good experience, and that's what we're looking for. We've got some young, exciting young players. It's that balance piece around how do we mould it all together.
A veteran of the side now is halfback Jonathan Taumeteine, who has been with the side since 2022. He believes they are on the right track for greater things in the new season.
It's been good. I guess the positive thing for me was I was able to see the growth of the team. Obviously we didn't do so great in the first 2 years, but I think we're heading in the right direction with the new coaching staff in now and a few exceptional players, so looking forward to it. It's pretty important. I think this time last year we were still trying to play catch-up pre-season, but for some reason it feels like we have more time on our side, so it's pretty important that we're taking all the learnings now.
Winger Lalomilo is also excited to be part of the Moana Pasifika pre-season program as he eyes his debut with the side in 2025. Having been sidelined with injuries in 2024, the Nipi Samoan winger says he is focused on being fit and ready for the new season.
It's been tough the last couple of weeks, but the boys really front up. I think we're heading to a good space before Christmas and New Year. So for me, just to play, to make that 23 first game, that's one of my biggest goals. I was supposed to debut last season, but I pulled my hammy on one of the last training sessions. So for me, going into next year, we'll just get that 23 and hopefully get some game time.
Moana Pasifika will take a 2-week break this weekend and return to prepare for the Highlanders in their pre-season game on January 15 at their new home ground at the North Harbour Stadium.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. For myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā sui fua.